Hello everyone and welcome to Handmade Hero, the show where we code a complete game live on stream. So, couple things. I would like to go work on the profiler today, but I feel like there's a couple things we should clean up first. And here's what I'm talking about. So, I realize we don't really ever do this on Handmade Hero, and it's not like my primary concern or anything, but I do feel like it's worth doing now and again. If anyone at the moment was going to try to run the current version of Handmade Hero, there's a couple things that we've done that make it kind of difficult for them to do that, if that makes sense. And specifically, what I'm thinking of is the crazy hack that we had to do in order to keep OBS correctly streaming our program, even though it's an OpenGL. And so if you remember how we did this, when we first went through this, let me go ahead and load our PRJ file. If you remember how we did this, inside the build.bat file, this business right here, what we did is we had a handmade streaming equals 1 thing, and the handmade streaming equals 1 controls the code in handmade.cp, which is totally bogus, very bad idea code. Right? It's this thing right here where we actually set the double buffer to false, even though we're using the double buffer, which should just be straight up illegal. Like, I don't even know why it works. But all we know is for some reason when I did it, it allows the streaming to work in a nice integrated way that doesn't require us doing anything crazy with OBS. So it's good for us on stream. But anyone who tries to build a game and doesn't know they have to turn that off is going to be very sad, because they're going to get totally broken OpenGL output or a crash or who knows what else. So what I'm thinking is, could we take some time today to figure out a way to make it so that in general, only on my build does this default to 1, but on everyone else's build, it will default to 0, if that makes sense. And so what I was thinking is we could do something where maybe I set an environment variable, and only if that environment variable is set does handmade streaming end up getting set to anything, if that makes sense. Now, I don't actually know what form that would take exactly, but I'm thinking something like this. So, the simplest possible version would be that the environment variables, right, like, we've got this whole big stream of environment variables here. Maybe I could bring in one of the environment variables or see if that environment variable was set. And I don't need that browser. I don't really do that sort of stuff very often, but I'm pretty sure that's not a huge deal. So like check if an environment variable is set MS-DOS, right? Like, it shouldn't be a big deal, I'm assuming. Or here we go. There you go, right? So like, well, no, that's somebody saying. Here we go. Here's some stuff. That looks ridiculous. I don't think that's true. Of course. Why do I even look at Stack Overflow? God. People, seriously? Anyway, let's see here. There we go. That looks more like what I was looking for. So what we can do is we can say, all right, let's check whatever the environment variable is and see if it has a non-empty value, then that means maybe we'll do my thing. And if it doesn't, right, we can say other people won't have it set, and so that'll be fine. So if I do this format, I think in this batch file, I should be able to do something where that would happen. That's just my guess. So for example, in here, I could just do something where I'm like, okay, if, handmade streaming, which is just something only I will set, if that equals nothing here, then we will do, well, I guess what I would rather do is do a not. So what I could do pretty trivially is say, then go to, no streaming or something like that, right? No streaming. And then I can just put one of those labels here. So that way, if this is not defined, it'll jump over the next statement. And then in here, what I can do is say, well, let's take the common compiler flags, and I will add to those flags, right? Oops, that's no good. I will add to those flags something like this. There we go. So this way our common compiler flags will have handmade streaming appended to it, but only in that case where I've actually defined it. So if I compile, did I do that wrong? This is, cannot find the batch label specified no streaming. Is it actually this way? Yeah, that's how you do that. Sorry, I missed it. The labels in batch files have a colon at the beginning. C has the colon at the end. So yeah. So if I do that, I believe what will happen is I'll get the handmade streaming will be not defined. And so we'll check right now whether it is by going into Win32 Handmade where we're using it. Right here. And the handmade streaming case, which is this case, I'm just going to put some garbage in there. And so there we can verify that that's not the case we're using and that this is the case we're using. Right? Which is, that's what we wanted. So now we know that that's working. Let's now test the other side of that. So that's what normally people will get. So that's good. Now they don't have to care about that, right? Now they don't have to know to do that. They can just build and it will build normally, right? And so if we've got that, now we'll try saying like, okay, let's close this down and see if I can set an environment variable that will make that happen, right? So I can close this, and I can close this, and I can say, all right, inside my computer, and I'll go to the settings for, no, that's not it. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. I never remember where. There it is. Okay. Or not, that's permissions. Where are you, Mr. Environment Variables? Is it not? Why isn't it there? What? Oh, for crying out loud. There, okay. Do I have to do this? God, like, if this, my computer, is because it's a link or something, you don't get the settings. This one you do, of course. Then I go to Advanced System Settings, and there's Environment Variables, of course, right where you would expect it to be. Or not. So anyway, user variables for me, I can go in here and say, all right, well, there's a handmade streaming variable, and it's going to be set to 1, so buckle up. There you go. And hit OK. And now I believe if I go back here, I should be able to see that it has been set. And so if I do set, I should see handmade stream equals 1. There it is. And now if I go back to what we were doing and reload reload our editor in here. Oops, that's not how you spell handmade. There we go, and build.bat, and I'll load that project file. Here we go. So if I build now, in theory, I'm building that other code path because I've defined the environment variable. I don't actually know if that's true or not, so I'm going to do the same trick I just did to see if that's actually true. So here is handmade streaming. This was the case that now should be shut off, so we should not get an error. And we don't, so that's great. And so that means this case should be going correctly. It is. And so I think that's just a cleaner way to handle that, because really no one should ever build with that on. It's not something that anyone actually should ever use. We definitely don't want to ever accidentally ship the game that way either. So we would want to be very careful about this, and certainly no one else should ever be doing that. And so I think that's a reasonable enough solution to the problem. And so let's double check to make sure we can still stream. So I'm going to launch MSDev here. There we go. And I'm going to run it. And can everyone still see this okay? Like, what do you think? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to make sure that that was seeable and all that. So that's good. And that's just one thing that I wanted to quickly make sure was working okay. The other thing that I suppose that we probably want to do at the moment, I think in the build.bat, is I don't think we're not really using the preprocessor or anything. This stuff is not actually happening. So I'm going to disable this stuff as well, because it just adds another thing for people to have to worry about. And so I'm going to just leave that I'm going to prevent that from ever getting called. And similarly, I'm going to take a look at handmade generated there. And I'm going to just nerf that guy because we don't use it at all. Right, like I don't think we actually use any of this at the moment. So I'm going to see if we can just get rid of that entirely. And handmade meta.cpp as well. Cannot open include file. Well, that's because I deleted it. Weren't you watching? Oops, that was a mistake. Why did I close everything? I don't know. That was just me being stupid. All right. Handmade meta. Get rid of that. I don't even know what this is, but I don't care. There we go. All right. All right. So what is this code? Debug dump struct. Do we even call this anymore? Nope. So we'll just get rid of all of that. Goodbye. Okay. So I think we're good. And yeah, so that's at least cleaner. So now they don't have to worry about that either because I think that had some stuff in it that was a little bit tricky for them to do or whatever. There was also in the OpenGL side of things, my understanding was that casting, this bit of casting here is problematic for GCC or somebody was having trouble with this. So we might as well get rid of this one because this one's pretty easy. This is basically just a like pointer. Well, actually, you know what? Is it a void star? I don't actually remember what we even defined that to be. The texture handle. I guess what's that in? I don't even remember what that's in. Is it in here? I don't really remember. One of the things I really want to write for Forehead is a grep for all the files. Like basically find all the look through all the files that I have loaded. Because right now I have like everything loaded for the whole project. And so it'd be really trivial for me to do a find everywhere, but I just haven't written it yet. It'd be so simple. I'm really excited about it because it would be like instant. You just do it and it would find it for you. But I never remember to do it. I've been so busy lately, I haven't had a chance to really do anything with it. So meta.h, we still got a meta.h. Oh, no, we don't. That's math.h. Sorry. Meta.h, there it is. So meta.h we don't really need either. These are all things we can get rid of. So I'm going to get rid of that as well. Del handmade meta.h. There we go. All right. But I still now need to take a look at that the bitmap stuff. So, oops. So in here I have to do, where's that going to be? It's not in file formats. It's it's not an asset. I don't know where it is. I don't know where that went. Oh, you know what? It's in render. It's in render group.h, isn't it? It's right here. So since that's a void star texture handle, that's basically, you know, a thing where you can stick a pointer in there. And the problem with that is GCC is like super overzealous about checking whether you cast from a pointer to other things. I have no idea why, because it's not like there isn't a cast there. Like, it's not like I just did an equals. I told it to cast, but it's like, that's not good enough for me. I don't actually want you to cast. So it's like, all right. So I can do like a U32 from pointer kind of a thing, I guess. I feel like we had one of these. I don't really remember what we called it, but I feel like we had to do it. So here you go. Pointer, so it's pointer 2. I might change that to be U32 from pointer, because I think I like that better. Let's see here, U32 from pointer. Keep going. U32 from pointer, like so. Yeah. One more time for the world. U32 from pointer. Yep. And the other thing that oops, that's didn't mean to do that. And the other thing that I might want to do is do the reverse, right? Because inside asset.cpp, I'm assuming that it will also complain about this one. So we probably also want to do pointer from U32, or actually, to be honest, I don't know, what does allocate texture actually return? I don't actually know. So it returns a void star. So actually, the only person I guess that would end up getting complained about it was in here where we do Win32 allocate texture. This, by the way, should not really be called Win32 allocate. This should just be allocate and deallocate texture. Now that I think about it, because we moved them out of the Win32 section. I think someone was like, "Hey, they're not platform specific. You could move them out," and that's true. So this here, we want to do the cast as well. We want to do pointer from U32 for this one, so that it goes the other direction as well. And probably inside here, we'd need to do the same thing. So we need to do U32 from pointer, like so. And so, yeah, that's just, again, just to clean up just spurious compiler warnings for people, to make it a little easier on them if they don't really know what's going on. And let's see, if I go to platform here, we've got those casts. So these are define pointer from U32. And you know what I could do too? I don't know if this is particularly, you know what, this does seem kind of nice. If I did pointer, if I said what type you wanted the pointer to be, and then I said value here, then what I could do is say like, oh, it's going to be a type star, and then in here we'll do the cast. So to do the cast, we would say whatever the value is, we're going to elevate the value to a memory index size first, which I think is what we need to do. I don't really remember what it wants us to do. And then it could cast it to a type star. I think that's what GCC wants to see. I don't actually know. Or I should say Clang. GCC and Clang kind of mirror each other, I think intentionally. So yeah, so I can just do that and say I want a void out of that thing. And then I can go in here and fix these guys up. Right? So that's that, and that goes ahead and runs and looks fine for what we're doing. At least it seems like it. So that's all good. And yeah, so that gets rid of some of those things. I suppose technically I should probably look at the GitHub to see what some of the other ones were, but I feel like I wanted to just get those out of the way because those were easy ones that have been kind of sitting around. That we can sort of get rid of, if that makes sense. So, yeah, what time is it? How long did that take? 5:40, and we've got, so that's 20 minutes plus the 20 minutes that's on the clock, so we've got 40 minutes left. What do I want to do with that 40 minutes? I think I want to go do more profiling, but I'm trying to think if there's other stuff that I want to do in here that makes some sense. So there's fader uninitialized. There's a fader uninitialized variable, thing that Martin's pointed out that I would like to fix as well. And then people were also trying to talk about how to keep the fader working now that we're using OpenGL. And here's the thing about fading in and out is I don't really want to support that. I think I added it specifically because Miblo wanted to know how to do it, but I feel like it's just a really bad idea in general because you're basically taking something that's often very nasty, which is initializing the 3D card, and now you're adding something else that can go wrong on top of it. So ideally, I would say just the fader should just get removed, right? I mean, I showed how to add it. You know now if you want to do that in your game, you've got it. You've got the code. But I feel like you probably are going to be on your own for that one. So I really don't particularly want to continue supporting that. I feel like what we should really do is just get rid of the fader. Fader is gone. And, you know, if you want the fader, you go look at sort of the code for the fader and you can implement it yourself, if that makes sense. Because I don't really want to have to ship a game with that fader in it. I don't think that's a good idea. And if we're saying that Handmade Hair is going to have it, then that means at some point we're going to like put it on Steam and it's going to have this stupid fader code, right? And that's going to be like something that I've got to support now with overlay windows and whether that screws up the graphics driver's ability to initialize, like blah, blah, blah. So I think that probably wants to get iced. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of here. That's going to go away, if that makes sense. And we're just going to take a look at what that used to be doing in here. So I'm going to delete that out of here as well. And the begin faded desktop, if quit requested, I'm just going to set global running at this point to false. And I'm going to delete this stuff here. I don't know what handle debug cycle counters was doing there. I don't know why it was there. I'm assuming it can be removed. And so now I think we should just start up, hopefully, or not. Oh, because I still have the thing for like setting the window to be visible. Where is that stuff happening here? Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, so we still have all this nonsense. So what we actually want to do is do the show window. We need to get the show window code working. So we need to do this, basically, if that makes sense. And I pretty much don't need any of this stuff, I don't think. All of this stuff doesn't need to be here. So this can all go away. Goodbye. Let's see. So inside here, where we're actually doing this, we would now just go ahead and show this window after we're done. So when this stuff all sort of happens and we get everything up to the point where it's ready to go, right before we start the game, we would do a show window. So, you know, that's which is not there. So something like here. All right. There we go. So that's correct now, and if we exit, we can exit instantly, so that's good. Yeah, and so that's like, you know, that's it's in there, and if you want to try and ship a game with the fader, go nuts. I don't want anything to do with that, because I have no idea what that's going to do to graphics drivers on a whole variety of machines, trying to have like the fade out over the desktop and then create the open. Like, I don't want to know. It's not an effect I care about at all, so I'm just not interested in making ourselves have potentially a worse time of things. But you are welcome to it, if that makes sense. The other thing that I am wondering about here is also that we could do is we could undo the multi-threaded OpenGL part of things. I don't know to what extent we want to do that, but from what I can tell, and asking around, on like the having the multiple OpenGL context really doesn't get you anything if you're not on one of their special high-end cards. So like if you're on an NVIDIA Quadro or something like this, you get access to these actual copy engines, but apparently that's not actually true on the lower end consumer grade cards. So really that extra complexity isn't getting us anything. So what that means, I guess somewhat oddly, is that we don't actually need those contexts for anything. And what we would want to do is we would want to specify those textures. We'd want to basically have a way of specifying those textures up front and putting them, like using, for example, we mentioned the pixel buffer objects. We could use something like pixel buffer objects to prep the textures ahead of time, and then we don't actually ever try to submit them in any other way. We just do a GL text subimage at the time, GL text image, and then that's it. And we don't ever really try to do anything else. So, you know, we could do that as well. I'm not sure whether we want to do that today. I guess we maybe have enough time to do it, but I'm not sure if we want to do it or not. We can leave things kind of going the way they are at the moment, but I'm not sure it's a particularly efficient way to do things. It's hard to say while I'm sort of doing cleanup-oriented stuff. But anyway, now that the fader is out of there, that's good. And I'm trying to think if there's any other things in here that I wanted to... Oh, yeah. You know what's one thing that I believe that we had a reproducible bug that I want to look at? No one actually mentioned this bug specifically in the GitHub, but I had noticed it. Is if I remember correctly, you know, we didn't finish debugging. We did some stuff here, and we were going to start working on this. But if I remember correctly, we did something wrong with our strings that I wanted to look at, because if we took, like, for example, here I am in for-coder, if I was to do a rebuild and have it reload, I seem to remember us, like, on reload losing our strings. That's what I remember. We lost our profile. That happened. And if I, like, let me go actually make a change here just to see, like, debug.cpp. So let me make a change of some kind. Yeah, so of course it's not doing it now, but there was one. I probably have to make a change that'll actually be somewhat substantial. Let's take a look. So here's for-coder, and what can I do? So first of all, why isn't my profile working? Would be question number one, right? So I am interested to know why my profile isn't profiling. But the other thing, right, because that should be showing something here. You know what I mean? So that's odd. And the other thing that I thought there was some string problems. Maybe we accidentally fixed them or something, but I don't see how we would have. So I need to make some changes that'll actually do something. I don't know what. Well, here we go. Let's go to render. Let's go to world mode. I think what I was doing at the time to play around with it is I was fussing with some of these variables here. So maybe we can do that. So here's hero bitmaps, and let's see where we're doing these maps here. Maybe I can go in here. Here we are doing some stuff, and then I can change this to like cape or something. That didn't work. Why aren't you breaking? Yeah, so this is not breaking, and that's a problem because can't debug it if it doesn't break. I suppose that's sort of good and sort of not good. All right, what if I were to just delete the code for like rendering trees entirely? Like this stuff just goes away. Like walls are gone, swords are gone, the familiar's gone, the monster's gone, all of it gone. Goodbye. Well, that's fine. Yeah, I know it's an invalid code path. I don't care. Ignore it. I would like you to ignore the code, please. All right. Here's the disassembly. What is the problem for this? I can't ignore it, right, because I guess we don't have that. And then we jump here. We test this and jump if equals to here. And then we do our dwood pointer right. So, all right. Fine. What if instead we just didn't do that? So for example, in this dword pointer, the jump if equals, can I just overwrite this value with something else? Let's see, what can I do here to make that not happen? What can I do here to make that not happen? Because I just want it to keep going. That's a valid assertion, and I'm happy it happened. Let's take a look here. Kind of want to nop, but I don't remember what the instruction is for it, which I would if I was an assembly language programmer. of course. Although actually this would probably be fine as well, to be honest. I suppose I don't need an op. I could just do something. I could just do some more of these. Actually, why didn't I think of that before? What I could do is just repeat this instruction like ad infinitum, right? I could do like, you know, memory. Let's grab that there. So there's C70425 like 0000, and then it doesn't start to do the XOR again until here, which is the 33C0. So what if I just instead just patch that over with like 33C0, 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 33C0. Oh, it's the wrong parity. Oh, that's a bummer. I just need something. Oh, well, that one is 3. Would that have been enough? Could I do just the test instruction? 4885C0, 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 and then I can do the XOR. All right, now the code is okay, right? Perfect. So now we can just go ahead and go there. So we have surgically removed, right? You saw what I did there, right? It was, that was our assertion because, hey, like, we assert that we always handled that, and I updated the code to make it so that it wasn't handling a bunch of cases. And so we would get in here and say, hey, that's not legal. You didn't handle one of the entities. And I didn't want it to write to 0 anymore, so I had to write over the instructions in memory with something that would not harm it. And so I just did a bunch of test instructions, which is fine because we already executed that, so that's not going to do anything different. And then I put the XOR in there. I had to make it work out to the right instruction length because, of course, x64 is a variable instruction sort of thing. But, you know, as long as they don't do anything harmful, then we're fine. So in theory, we should be all good now, I think. I don't actually know, but let's find out. There we go. All right, so now we're not drawing anything, and there we go. Good. Yes, see? My strings got messed up, right? So I have verified that the strings, in fact, are getting messed up. And so I want to go take a look at why we're having our strings get messed up, because my understanding was we wrote it so that we actually saved the strings properly, and so they shouldn't be getting messed up. But since they are, that means obviously that's not true. Like our strings actually are bogus in some way, and we should go figure out why. Okay, that was a lot of fun. Okay, so yeah, now we know. Where was that? I don't even know where that was. There's Monstar, here we go. So this stuff, this is gonna come back in. We now know we can turn that off to get the strings to break, hopefully. I'm gonna comment that out for now, so we don't have to keep doing that ROP every time, because that took a little while in case you couldn't tell. So in here, when we're doing our thing, if I want to, I can come back in here, set this to 0, and I'm hoping that that will, yeah, and so there you go, that corrupts our strings. And so now we've got a repro case that I can work with to figure out why our strings are being corrupted. Presumably it's something pretty simple, but you never do know. But either way, right, that code reloading is very delicate with strings, and we want to make sure that we're not screwing it up, because I want to be able to use that with the debug system without having to worry about it. So right now, when we print out those strings, right, we do that in those are header strings. The ones that are getting corrupted, right, I think are header strings. So those are going to be in when we print out our debug groups. So inside this debug draw main menu nonsense here, what we're actually printing is this stuff, I believe. And so where is it getting that, right? it looks like it's getting that from the links, the name of the group that is in, you can see this here, that's the name of the group that's stored in the actual like hierarchy tree, which is different. Like it's not the debug elements, it's actually the debug tree, which has that. So it's this debug variable group thing. So it's going to be this name and name length business here. So I actually, you can kind of see already this is probably broken. In fact, we probably should not be doing it that way at all, right? This is probably pointing into the original instead of into the GUID. There's probably no reason to do that anyway. And we should probably just be doing it like this. So my guess, let's take a look here. We do this whole copy with the name listing. We probably don't want to do any of that, really. We'd probably rather do something like this, where we just say the text equals the link children name, like so, and we just get rid of all that. That's probably just better. Here where we're doing the name and name length, and we do create variable group. I want to take a quick survey of just who is actually doing that, just to make sure. So you can see it doing the clone there, which is fine. And then in here where we do get or create, you can see it sort of doing it out of, and I'm just guessing that that's probably out of the wrong place. So I think I'm just going to change those just to be safe, since we don't care that much about the amount of memory used by these things. I'm just going to clone those strings so that here where it comes in, and it's doing this get or create, create variable group, this bit here, I'm going to make that just do a push string. So instead of doing these name lengths here, it's just going to do in here a push string. It's not going to store this, and it's going to do just a push string here. Do we have a push and copy? Handmade dot h push string. There it is. So we have a push size and we have a push copy, right? So what I really want to do here is I want to do a push. I actually want to do a like push and null terminate, right? So this guy here, is really probably wants to be like, push and null terminate, something like that. And this would just take the length of the string to push, and it would do the copy and null terminate the name for me. I don't really know that we're going to really use that multiple times, but just in case, we might as well. We might as well have it. So here, when we do this stuff, we'd no longer have to get the size because the person's telling us what the size is as it comes in. So when we do the push, we know that we're just going to push the length plus 1 because we want to null terminate it, obviously. And we don't want to clear. Then we're going to go through and we're going to copy it in. And the only difference between these two is at the end, we would just stick the null terminator on, right? So pushing null terminate, that's all that's going to do. And that's fine. So in here where we do, oops. Let's see, push and null terminate. Function does not take 2 arguments. Right you are, sir. This is going to be our debug arena that those go onto because those are permanent names that we want to keep across the entire run of the program. We've got the name length here where we do a create variable group. In here, really when we do the clone, we don't really want this to work this way. We don't actually want to clone the string because the string can stay the same, if that makes sense. So really what we would want here is for this to be an actual push struct, and for desc children here to actually get initialized the same way as the previous one was. And then inside, when we do our push and null terminate, we instead of doing that, we just hard set the link to to what we were calling, right? We just say, oh, we want to just point to the same string because there's really no need to copy it twice. Yeah, oops, that's just children name. So let's see, name length, what is this? That's true. So this is just strings are equal. We no longer need this. There, we can just do it as a single comparison. I don't know which normally comes first though, in the way we do it. I don't know if we have this strings are equal. We may have to do it this way, like so. There we go. But I think that now cleans it up so that we're not using strings that we need. We're always pushing them properly, I think now. So here is our debug situation. And we should still try to figure out why I don't know why our profile went away, so that's another good one to look for as well. But anyway, so we've fixed that, we believe. Let's take a look and see if now we go back to the render group and test that, changing that if. Oh wait, not render group, it's world mode. So I'm going to go ahead and recompile that. There we go. Recompile it again. So now we're all good, and we're stable across runs. We don't mess up any strings, and everything works as necessary. Let me go in here to make sure that's true, because it was actually in the game mode that we were actually seeing the bad behavior, so it might be slightly different. Let's take a look. Looks like we have a bug here, though. What happened? This is an odd place for us to crash. Collation frames don't really have anything to do with strings. Yet here we are. So we do the reload. Who is wrong? Thread. The thread is valid. The first open code block also valid. But the opening event. The opening event does not have to be valid, is the thing. Yeah, that's actually true. So, is that actually the case though? Because the opening event is still inside the buffer, but I guess that buffer is actually a static buffer. So, here is the question. Riddle me this, Batman. Why did we make it a static buffer? Does anyone know? I feel like that is probably a holdover. Like why did we do that? Because here's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but here's what I assert is happening. So we have a static buffer in here. It's the global debug table. Right here. We have a static variable in here. That's a global debug table. It's where everything gets written, and you can see it in here. It's right here. It's one of these, right? And we know we always have a pointer to it. But why did we declare it as static? I have no idea. I do not know why we declared it static. It seems like that's just asking for trouble because that's going to get relocated potentially when the DLL gets reloaded. And so at the very least, if it was going to be static, it should actually be in the platform layer. Like, why is it... This is just stupid, right? This is just dumb. It's the wrong way round. Like, you don't want this to be in the game. You want this to be in the platform layer, and the platform layer would pass it to the game, right? That's what you would do if you had any idea what you're doing, which I obviously don't because I wrote it this way, which is stupid. So what you would do, and by would do I mean what we're going to do right now, is in the Win32 layer where this actually gets defined as something the game passes. I think what we actually want to do is say, well, hey, this one that's created here, this is actually going to be the authoritative one, right? That seems like the smarter way to go. This is the authoritative debug table. And then when we actually call the game, we'll give the game our debug table for it to use rather than the other way around. Because right now it goes the other way around, right? Right now what happens is, in here, we do this whole nonsense where we like look to see when the game does its debug frame end, we like get the debug table back from the game. But I have no idea why we do that. Like, why are we doing that? I literally have no idea why we did that. None whatsoever. I also don't know why we set event array index underscore event index to 0. I guess that's because if we don't have a game, we don't want to blow out the end of the table. This is just bad. That's what I've decided. I don't think we really knew what we were doing when we did this. I think we were like still working our way through it, and I'm not confident in the decisions we made here. So I am going to consider this something that I can rewrite right now because I don't think, if we actually wanted to keep this, I feel like we had an onus on ourselves to write some kind of a comment that explained why, because I don't see it, and so I don't really think that it needs to remain. I think it wasn't thought through, as opposed to it being thought through particularly carefully or something like that. I think what we actually want to do is pass this in here, where we're going to pass the global debug table into the game. More specifically, probably what I'd say is we would actually pass that in probably at the head end, right? So like the very first time we call the game with something, which is going to be like probably up here, right? We do Win32 load game code, you know what I mean? And right there, like before we've actually called anything at all, we would want to set that debug thing up. So the first thing we call is the update and render. So I feel like that just wants to take the global debug table as a thing, right? Now we can just stick that in the memory. That could just be in the memory itself so that we don't have to care. We don't have to like, right? It could just be in here. And I think that's the right thing to do. So we'll have that debug storage size thing, and we might be able to condense these down. So this would just be like debug table, and it would be global debug table. That would be what would be in there. And then in the platform, you know, when we're passing this nonsense around, inside the where we have the memory bit, where is that at? Game memory. I like actually start using this. Should probably see what that does as well. Let's take a look here. There we go. So here is game memory, and I think what we want to do here is just say like, okay, we got the debug storage size and the debug storage. I'm going to put the debug table in here. We can do a handmade internal, because we wouldn't need it if it wasn't And so we could predicate this on that. Right? So that seems like a good situation to me. Now it will just compile. In theory, it will also just work. I can eliminate the concept that we ever return that information from this, so that now when we're doing that end frame stuff, I don't remember where that is. It's in here somewhere. Let's see. End. Oops. End. Isn't it end frame? I know we've got that in here somewhere. So here's game update and render. Where's the debug frame end? Is that in the interface code? Huh. I'm very confused by this. I feel like it should have been defined in here, but maybe it's not. Let's take a look. So here's debug game frame end. Oh, it's frame end. Perfect. Wow. All right. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Frame end. There it is. So this thing is not going to return a debug table. It's basically what we're saying. It's just going to look like that now. And now this thing is not going to return anybody at all. And now everything is all set to go. All we have to do if we want to make this work is in update and render, which is here. When we initialize, we would just do global debug table equals memory debug table. And that's it. And then we just have to actually define that somewhere. We could just do that here, certainly. And we could condense these two down into something as well, right? Global debug table. But I think that's better. So here we go, and we're up and running, and everyone's happy, and that's good. And I'm going to try to get this to crash. Or rather, I'm hoping it won't crash, but I want to twiddle it a little bit. Just give it a little, you know, get all up ons there. See what's going on. Let's get this going here. Here we go. Okay. And that's looking nice. Yeah. Cool. So now our debug code reloading. In case we weren't already ridiculous enough, we can live edit debug code that's being rewound at the same time while having the full debug on multiple threads being captured, even if they are going across a frame boundary, and apparently will report it correctly. Like I said, I like engine programming, don't really care about game programming. What can I say? So now my only question is, what is wrong with our profile? So we have one more live code edit bug here with the debug system that we want to address, which is why our profile disappears, because our profile definitely does disappear, and our profile should not disappear, because as far as I know, I wasn't actually relying on anything in the debug system for that purpose. So something is messed up. And I don't know what that something is. So we should find out what that something is, at the risk of stating the overwhelmingly obvious. So let's start with that now. So first of all, when we do the debugging stuff, we're talking about that profile group, right? And so when we do begin and end blocks, the way that we're doing that is I guess we're just sort of getting these event elements and we're setting up the root profile node for collation frames. We're just checking to see whether we've got one of these open or not. So it occurs to me, and I'm just going to throw this out there as an example of something ridiculous that could be happening. It occurs to me that one way to get what we're seeing is if we never actually created a root profile node after the code reload. So we're going along just fine. We've got open thread block. We do begin blocks, we do close blocks, begin blocks, close blocks, begin blocks, close blocks, and they're properly matched such that we are always closing a block that we've opened. Ergo, we are always at the root level correctly when we restart a frame, and so when we open things up there, we're seeing that we don't have anyone sitting on the debug thread list, so everything goes at the root level. But if during the code reload that was not true, and so during the code reload it somehow messed up who was the open block at that time, so that we always have an extra open block sitting at the beginning, then we would never get to this case, right? We'd never have this case where we actually set the root profile node for a collation frame. That would never happen. So that's one example of how this could occur. I can test that pretty easily. But the first thing I want to do is I want to look to see how I believe that would be happening so that I can just educate myself about what I expect to see so that when I go looking for it, I will know whether I'm seeing what I think I should see or not. All right. So normally when we blaze through here, we do a begin block of the executable refresh. So during the time when the executable is itself refreshed, we are actually inside an open debug block. And then when we come back out, well, there's our answer right there. You looking at it? You seeing it? So presumably what's happening, well, actually no, wait, I take it back. This should still be working. This should still be working because we don't rely on the game to close that block. So this should be fine. This should be fine. Because if all work queues are completed, that means that no one can launch an asynchronous background task to be loading anything. They are gone. They've been drained out. The code has been unloaded. Everything's out of memory. When we end this block here, we're doing that locally. So that should actually do an end block using the global debug memory. That should work. We then do a begin block. We open that up. We do what we were normally doing here. That's all fine. We call the update. Everything should be fine. So all of that looks reasonable to me. So that seems okay. That seems okay. So let's take a look at this, the other part, where we do debug end frame. So here's debug end frame. This, what is this doing? Why is this here? Because that doesn't make any sense at all. I'm very curious about what that's doing there, and I do wonder if that in theory could also probably be part of the bug, and well, although that should just be causing a bug all the time, shouldn't it? I don't know why that's there. So if we are in the debug code and we do a frame end, right? Here's where we're updating these things. You can see that we're doing an atomic exchange on the array event index. We update it each time, right? I mean, we are doing the update in here for what we want this to be. I don't understand why this is getting set to 0. I guess because we want to always set it to 0 regardless. But it shouldn't be, okay. It shouldn't be 0, right? Am I the only person who's concerned about this? Maybe I am, I don't know. But here's debug interface, right? And I realize it's been a long time since we touched any of this stuff. But let's take a look at that, where's that debug table? There it is. So here's the debug table, and you can see event index, event array index, event index. And you can kind of see here that we've got 2 event arrays, and we ping pong between them, right? We collate one while we write into the other. Right? I mean, that's what we were doing. And so when we set this to 0, that suggests that we're only using one of them, which means we're gonna miss, like, I don't understand, I don't get it. Why would we ever want that to be true? Like, what is that for? That seems like that's just never good, right? That seems broken. All right, so let's try to ascertain whether we're correct. So you can see in current event array index here, we just toggle back and forth between it. So every time through, we're going to pick a different one. When we do our atomic exchange, this atomic exchange will clear it out. We'll clear out this value, and it will set this to the correct thing. So this is just probably was only there back from when we might have been, when we were sharing debug tables, and this was just clearing the one that was that would not have gotten cleared if we, when we call debug frame end or whatever. So I would say probably what we would want to do is if we failed to load the game, then sure, we zero it out. But any other condition where the game got loaded correctly, we wouldn't want to. So I think, right, for some reason the game didn't load. Make sure we clear the debug event array so it doesn't pile up on itself. But I think that's more correct. I don't know what was going on there, but that was bad because that meant we were always running into the same array, which meant that our other people who might have still be writing into there we would miss them, or weird stuff would happen if we did that. That was not great, I don't think. All right, anyway, let's see what happens here. Presumably that doesn't fix our profile bug though, but I'm pretty sure that was a bug that we did not want. All right, so pound if this is 1, there we are. Let's go ahead and take that out. So maybe that was our bug. Here's our profile. Yeah, so that was our bug. Because that was clearing, I guess that... No, there we go. So that wasn't the bug. All right, good. So it's just a question of we got to catch it at the right time. I was going to say, it doesn't seem possible to me. So given how finicky that is, again, it really does feel to me like the problem is we're there's a hanging thread block that's open or something. So since we're in the condition right now, I'm going to just go ahead and step into the code that's doing the tracking so I can verify, I can see if that's actually the case. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see when we go to open one of these begin blocks, I'm just going to look to see what actually is in there. Right? So here's one of them threads. In fact, I guess we could also say, here's the debug state itself. Here's all of it. And we can see here on our thread list here, right? Here's all our threads. And this is the thread that is actually active at the time. It's lane index 0, so it's actually going to be, let's see here. Come through, right? So it's the third one on the list here. So in here we've got first open code block, and we can see what that event actually is. Well, I could if there was a scroll bar on it. So it's the open block, it's the debug collation block that's actually what's open, which actually is, I guess, kind of amusing. So the debug collation block is open, and that's inside. It looks like this is some kind of a... It looks like that's a block that's like never closed or isn't getting closed properly, right? Like during the reload, that's not getting closed or something. Because you can see it's parented to itself, which is just obviously not good. Because while you could get that case in a recursive call, we shouldn't be getting that case because that isn't a recursive function, right? So where is that? Where is that block? It looks like handmade.cpp. It's actually the one out here. So it's actually this one. It's this one right here. So basically we come through here, we've got a begin block, and then we're going to do an end block, like so. And it looks like this one is, for some reason, on the reload, not getting closed properly. Now that makes a very good bit of sense, because this is where the table gets reset. So that's the block that's going to be hanging. Like, hopefully you know what I'm getting at here, right? That's the block that's going to be hanging when the reload happens. Because I come in here, I've had this begin block, I collate everything, I've got that block still open on the parser that's running. The end block gets written in, but the next time around, the reload will have happened before I get to look at the actual end block that closed it, right? So I'm not 100% sure why it's having that problem, but that is the most logical person to have the bug that we have, assuming that I'm right about what the bug is. So when we do our Win32 unload game code here, right, it does, this block will always be parsed together. So it's even though this one's around, the one around the refresh, that's not the one that's likely to be bifurcated. So is there some reason why reloading the game is messing with the game's ability to process that when it comes back around? So I guess the first question I'd have is, how is it matching those two? Is it accidentally matching them on something that it shouldn't be matching them on? Like, it's matching them on GUID. The GUID could change, and that would be wrong. But in this case, the GUID shouldn't have changed. Nope, that's what it is. That's what it is. The GUID changes. So, well, okay. No, maybe I take it back. Maybe the GUID doesn't change. Let's take a look. So it's here, it's Handmade CPP 241234, right? Then let's take a look at what this one is. 241234. What's this here? 132 0 in debug interface. So that should still match if we were doing it correctly. So let's take a look here at how we're actually doing that matching. So to check if two events match, what are we doing? I don't care about you. If the thread ID equals the other thread ID, then the events match? That's what that means? Okay. I don't see any reason why the thread IDs would not match across a reload, so that's a bit odd. I can't say I know why that would be the case. Why it wouldn't match. That seems like that should match just fine. That's a very strange call to be making. So I want to take a look at this a little more closely, and I know we're out of time, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. So assuming it's I'm going to change this temporarily to just be like an assert. Because I just want to know, what's going on in there, and I'm not sure I do. So I want to set that to an assertion, and I want to see like when does this not happen, right? So there we've hit it once. So here's an opening event, and here's the event. And we've got a thing that's like record span that goes to the beginning of the frame series, and it's like, okay, but that's not even, this comment's not even valid anymore. Like that's not what's happening here, right? At least I don't think so. So let's see. This is Handmade code 132.0. Which ones are these? Are these both? There's the opening event and there's the event. The opening event should not have an end block as its GUID. Right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all, to say the very least. The opening event should have an open, like an open block as its GUID. So I'm not sure what's going on here. That's very bizarre to me. Let's take a look at the thread. Opening event. And what's the debug element for this code block as well? It's load asset work directly, which is what we would expect, right? But why is the opening event bizarre? Why is this the opening event? We're setting it, correct? Aren't we? Or maybe we aren't. Let's take a look. Do we set that properly? So here's the debug block. Here's the event that we set when we open it. We do allocate it and we do pass it. And when we call allocate debug block, I'm assuming we actually correctly set it. So there's a pointer to the event, right? Oh. But that is the wrong pointer to the event. That is not stored. That's not stored at all. This is the actual event we want to store. Because anything that we take that's a pointer into there is going to go away, right? So that's a bug. Perhaps the bug. And I don't know if you follow me on that one. The event that we're processing here, right, is transitory. After we process it, we can't count on it being live anymore. So since we're now parsing this incrementally, this event is going to disappear once we flush the buffer. So the only thing we can actually reference is the stored event version of that event that we copied. That we can look at all day long, because that's permanent, right? Or at least it's very long lasting, certainly longer lasting than the block, right? We know we can store several frames worth of that. And I'll make a note here, note Casey. And you know what, actually, now that I think about it too, it might actually be a better idea to keep this. I'll make note of this. It might be a good idea to actually just copy the relevant block information into the open debug block directly, because really stored blocks can get freed eventually too. So stored event isn't really what we want. So technically, I think this code is not so good, right? What we really want to do is copy it, what we wanted into that debug block and then use it. But yeah. So. Okay, so let's take a look now where we're at. Wait, did I actually... Let's make sure I did that right. Stored event, element, frame index, first open code block. Yeah. That's all good. Okay. All right, off we go. And so now let's take a look at these guys. Of course, we still may have other problems here, but that was definitely just wrong. Okay, so we've got an opening event here. Right, the GUID... Well, why would the GUID be 0? Something very strange is afoot. The GUID should not be 0. I mean, I suppose it's not a problem that it is, but it shouldn't be. There's the end block. Show me what's happening here. There we go. I want to see what's happening with stored event. Okay, so inside stored event, here's our event handle. And why is there no GUID to it? We called stored event, we called store event, and we stored this event, right? So what happened here? Oh, right, that's actually fine. So complicated. I rather enjoy it though. So the reason for that is just that in here, we're actually just using that to double for profile nodes. So yeah, this does not want to be doing what it's doing, is basically what it boils down to. The correct way to do this is just to say the open debug block does not store the event, it stores anything that you needed from the event, right? So here in end block, when we do the end block, anything that we actually needed to do, we had better do now. We had better have stored. So instead of ever looking at open event, we want to do something where we can do whatever checking we need. Events match is the only place that we actually used it, other than the clock. So I'm going to say that we put the begin clock directly in there. So this will just be the matching block. Oops. And I can get rid of this as well. So I'm just going to say that instead of opening event clock, I'm going to say that we have the matching block, begin clock. So in here, we'll store that. And then this events match, all that was actually doing was checking the threads. So I think what I want to do here is say matching block, or rather the thread ID. I want to make sure that that thread ID matches this event's thread ID. And that's it. That's all that should be happening. And I think that's just an assert. I think these always have to close. That's just like gotta happen. And so all this stuff goes away, right? And that's all fine. So yeah, so up here we've got our begin clock, and now we just say like whatever the event clock actually was is what we store. The first open code block opening event clock now is, again, that's just that begin clock. When we tried to get this, we no longer want that to be something you can even access. And this right here, I don't even know why we have this at all with the matching events match thing, because it's just a thread thing. Again, we don't even need that. So this is really just an assertion that the thread ID matches. All right, so that's just cleaning out some code. All right, now let's take a look at what's going down in here. Okay, now we are in better shape, I suspect. Okay, so everything seems to be working okay in there now, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to switch back to the world mode stuff, and I'm going to go like this. Compile. And hey, we're still losing our profile. Well, we're out of time, so I'll save it for tomorrow. I'm kind of interested to know what's going wrong in there, but I'm pretty sure we'll figure it out relatively quickly. That was all just kind of garbage stuff in there, so I'm glad that we cleaned that out, because that was not correct in any way. Yeah, I'll take a couple brief Q&As, but might want to save most of them for tomorrow when we actually finish finding the bug, and then we'll be in good shape. Just used, would it be reasonable to separate the debug UI into a program that communicates with the game over pipes or sockets? The game won't hold the debug data and won't waste cycles on debug collation, debug rendering. If game crashes, you can still inspect frames or even save them to the disk independently of the game running. Yes. So that's totally a good idea. And probably if we were gonna do like a commercial version of the debug system, you would probably want to do that. The other reason why you would want it to work over sockets would be so that you can debug a machine that is not the machine that you're on. So for example, if you had a console stack, I got my PlayStation 4 dev kit or whatever, and I want to view the debug stuff on another machine, that's kind of the classic use case. So yeah. And we've kind of set it up to do that. Like the way we've got it where it writes to the buffers, it's not, you could easily switch this over to something that did that if you wanted to start writing some network code. We're not going to do that on stream, but you could imagine it, right? We sort of architected it so that wouldn't be a huge deal. It's really just that collation part that you would, collation display part, you just move that out into your separate program, and that'd be all you have to do. You're referring to global debug table outside of Handmade internal guard. Yeah, I mean, there's probably a ton of those. We'll clean them up when we actually start turning that off again. Okay, so your stream overlay disappeared at some point during this evening. Well, it only disappeared because we ran out of it ended at 6:30. Elvin, how are you finding modular editing so far? I'm still pretty slow, but I think that's because I have to do some more work to make it easier for me to do cleanup edits without having to switch modes. So I think I'll eventually be as fast as I was, possibly even faster, when I actually do some more work on it. So I don't know. We'll see. While I'm waiting for another questions, I can fix the one from the question for taking a look at global debug table outside of an internal guard. Where am I doing it, though? You're referring to global debug outside of internal guard. We initialize it in update and render. Okay, so you're talking about in here. Hubert Caleb, why not use debug break instead of int0, which will allow you to step over the assertion? Because debug break isn't platform. We'd have to do multiple one-stream platforms. That only works on Windows. There's an equivalent one for Unix, but it's different. Domina, the Handmade Twitter account says tomorrow is an off day. That is correct. Badfly Dog, what exactly is modular editing? I don't think I think they meant modal. It's modal editing. It's just it's like VI style. So like when you're in the green mode, you type, but when you're in the red mode, all of those things are actually commands, right? So I'm not actually holding down control or anything when I do that. That's all it is. Elvin, when you're writing your own renderers, do you go for left-handed coordinate system or right-handed? I always use right-handed because that's just typically what math uses. So I figure no real reason. If that makes sense. Something I noticed when you disable the trees rendering, the white dot used to resize the profile view is hard to see over a light background, like the text was hard to read before adding a shadow. Yeah, well, that's, like I said, if we get to the point where we do a beautification pass, really there's a bunch of things we want to do. So first of all, we want this to actually come up large to begin with. And the other thing is we want this to be bigger as well. And it's not currently. So this, you know, we didn't really do any work to draw this correctly. We would want to, right? How many profiles should we open at once is really the question. I think we probably just want a ton of profile views. Zach211W, do you find that commenting as you work helps you reason or helps you overall when programming? I find that commenting is really just if I'm trying to make a note for later, like I think I'm going to forget something, really, is mostly why I put it there. Elvin, do you think 4Coder is good enough to switch to coming from Emacs, or are you finding it's missing some stuff yet? Right now, there's only two, well, I guess there's three reasons not to switch from 4Coder, from Emacs to 4Coder. They are, the indenting in 4Coder doesn't really work right yet. I think it just has some bugs in it. Alan was suggesting that it was because it had to parse from the beginning of the buffer to get it right, but that's not actually true. Like it's just not working quite right yet. Like it doesn't pick, even in obvious cases, it often picks wrong. So I think actually it probably wouldn't be that hard to get as good, because Emacs picks wrong a bunch too. So I don't think it'd be as hard to get it as good as Emacs, but right now it's not. So I noticed that a lot. The autocomplete doesn't autocomplete stuff that's nearby, so it's not really that usable. So the autocomplete at the moment is pretty noticeable, and I have a lot of trouble with it. And the third one is just macros. So if you're going to ever do a big text edit with macros, it doesn't have the ability to do the macro accord and replay. Those are the only three things right now that I find to be worse than Emacs. Everything else is either the same or better. So I don't really know what Alan's schedule is like. He's in school at the moment, obviously. But I would be pretty surprised if in a couple months 4Coder wasn't at the point where there's literally no reason to be using Emacs at all. Unless you just really like programming in Lisp. Which I really, really, really don't, in case anyone was wondering. Elvin, vertical block kill selection. I don't really care that much about that. I use it on occasion, but honestly, macro recording is usually what I even use most of the time for that sort of stuff. So I don't even really care about that. I don't even know, it might even have that for all I know. And if it didn't have that, you could actually write it yourself at the moment. So if you really wanted it, you could add that. Keeper Caleb, off topic, I noticed that Pragma Pack will change the alignment of the struct. Is there a way of keeping the original alignment? Well, no, I mean, that's the whole point of Pragma Pack. I'm not sure what you mean. Badflight, could you share your 4-coder custom SVP? It is, it's in the Handmade Hero directory already. It's already in there. So if you pre-ordered Handmade Hero, you've already got it. I also send it to Alan every time, and I gave him permission to redistribute it with 4Coder, but I don't know to what extent he is doing that. So either you can also get it there, or you can only get it here, but either way, it's freely available somehow to some in one of your pre-orders. If you've pre-ordered both, you definitely have it. If you've only pre-ordered, if you only support 4Coder, I don't know if you get it or not. But if you pre-order Handmade Hero, then you get it. That's for sure. If that makes sense. And like I said, I gave Alan permission to redistribute it with 4Coder as well, but I don't know to what extent that actually happens now, because he told me to distribute it. Originally, I said just distribute it with 4Coder, give people another reason to buy 4Coder because I want them to support 4Coder, but he just said, nah, just give it away with Handmade Hero as well. So I was like, all right. BTN Games, do you think it would be neat to save a debug UI layout with torn elements open as they were last? So I think it would be neat, but I probably won't bother. What I think I'll probably do instead is just make it so that we can do that in code, and I'll just make my own ones in code for that. Like we'll just have a way of creating extra views in code. That's what I probably will do. But again, if this were like more of a commercial system, like we were trying to do, like here's this thing and we're shipping the debug system as a separate thing, then you would for sure want to do that. Right. And Alan's saying on the chat that if you subscribe to the $10 Patreon for 4Coder, then you get the 4Coder Casey as well. So basically there's two ways you can get it. One is by supporting 4Coder at the $10 a month tier, and the other is if you pre-ordered Handmade Hero. Both of them will come with it, sounds like. So. And yeah, you can use it with the $5 build. So. All right, I'm gonna call it a day. I'm getting tired. I'm tired. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. All right, close you down. Thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of Handmade Hero. It's been a pleasure coding with you. As always, if you want to follow along at home, you can always pre-order the game on handmadehero.org, and it comes with source code so that you can play around with it yourself. We also have a forum site which you can go to if you would like to ask questions. We have a Patreon page you can use to support the video series. We have a tweet bot that tweets a schedule at you. And if you are interested in the editor we were just talking about, which is the one I use on stream, you can type 4Coder into Google. And it is available if you support Alan's Patreon, then you can get a copy of it now while it's still in alpha. The one that we're using is the $5 tier one that allows you to build your own customizations in C, which is pretty rad. So I would say definitely check that out. Like I answered just a few minutes ago, it's at the point now where I actually use it instead of Emacs everywhere at the moment. And there's only a few things really left in it that are not as good as Emacs, and so for the things that I use anyway. And so it's rapidly approaching kind of a no-brainer switch, and I don't think it's going to take that much longer for it to get there. The big reason that I changed to it actually was because Emacs, when I decided to switch to a modal editing layout, Emacs is awful at that. It was horrific, and there's so many bugs I encountered trying to make a Lisp thing that would do modal that I just couldn't do it. So I switched to 4Coder, and it's been much smoother. And so, like I said, now the only things are a couple things that aren't quite as good as Emacs's version of the features, and when those are done, then it's just pretty much just better across the board. And it's definitely better for modal because, oh my god, trying to use Emacs in modal was a nightmare. Anyway, tomorrow is a day off. It is Molly Rocket movie night tomorrow, so I will not be streaming Handmade Hero, but I will be back on Wednesday. And again, if you ever want to know what the schedule is, you can always check the Tweetbot. It tells you what the schedule is. If you want to know what the week schedule is, or even that day's schedule, it'll tell you if we're on or off. So check that out. I'll be back here Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Until then, everyone, please have fun coding, and I will see you on the internet. Take it easy.